Hello, and welcome to Ask Your Inspector from Scott Home Inspection, a podcast about all things inspection related, including home inspections, energy services, and rental inspections. I'm here today with Chris Scott, and we have a question about why home inspections are so expensive. Before I even let Chris talk, I'm going to say I don't think they're that expensive, but maybe we have a little fun conversation about the pros and cons of your perspective on the cost of a home inspection.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Joe. Good to be here again. I will say this is a question that we don't get asked directly, but it's one I found on, as an inspection company, we see like, okay, what are people searching on Google about inspections? Like, what can we try to help answer? What do people want? So you look at Google Trends, you kind of figure it out. And this is actually a very highly asked Google Trend question, which I found interesting and kind of odd that people think that the home inspection is so expensive compared to some of the closing items or items that go into a home. But thinking about it more, I actually kind of understand where people are coming from on this. And go ahead.
Yeah. I certainly appreciate, a person's buying a house. It's a big deal and there's so much involved. They're working with realtors like, oh, great. Now I got to pay for this guy to come and look at this stuff. And oh my word, this is so expensive.
Right.
With almost anything that goes into a house, you kind of pay for what you get. I mean, do you really want a cheap home inspection? Because I don't know if you're going to get the same kind of quality of inspection materials or inspector for someone that's deliberately trying to market themselves as being a less costly alternative.
Yeah. Well, being an inspector, we are a little jaded, and I think it's easy to see our value.
I think I'm right.
Well, looking at this from a buyer's perspective, okay, for number one, home inspections are not required. You do not have to get a home inspection. There's nothing legally binding to that. Like most things when buying a home, you don't have to do almost anything, but there is a system built around it, mostly to protect the consumer, right?
Yeah.
I think that the disconnect comes from the inspection being one of the only items that a buyer has to pay for out of pocket in the close of a home, right? So there's a lot of costs built into a house, right? If you're buying a house, you have to pay for the home inspection, but you also have to pay for the title company to close on your loan. You have to do title insurance to make sure there's no issues with your title in the future. There's closing costs on the loan itself, loan origination fee. So for the bank to actually go find the loan for you. There's general fees associated with the bank itself. Most of the time as a buyer, you don't have to pay your agent, but there is certain circumstances where you have to pay some small fees for your agent. But all of those fees I just mentioned, except for the home inspection, are typically wrapped in the loan closing day, right? You don't pay for any of those items leading up to it until closing day on your loan, right? And then a lot of times the bank will just wrap all the closing costs into the loan itself, so you don't have to bring any money out of pocket. However, the home inspection is something that the buyer has to physically pull out their credit card or whatever and pay for it. So I think that's where the pain point is.
And I can appreciate that, but a lot of those costs that are being paid are wrapped into the loan itself, or it's obscured. You're not necessarily really feeling the pain of that $600-700 thing that happened along the way, where the home inspection is right on your card, right there. So I guess I'd want to speak on, what are you getting with a home inspection? I'd say that the very best way not the best way, but if you wanted the most complete information about a house, you would hire a roofer, plumber, an electrician, a structural engineer, a window person, an interior decorator, your appliance person. I mean, you'd run a small army of people who are all specialists to go through a house and tell you everything about it, and you would have a complete assessment of everything in the house. But two things. One, that's going to be tremendously costly to get all those individuals there, to get them all coordinated where they're showing in up to the property within the time, where your deadline, your inspection resolution is. And then also that these are all contractors who are not third party and objective, that they might be very upstanding individuals and offering you an honest assessment of things, but there is that conflict of interest where they can introduce like, oh yeah, these windows, they're not in great shape. Here, let me give you a price for what it's going to cost to replace all your windows. Mm-hmm. The benefit and the strength of the home inspector is that, this is our 9 to 5. We're trained, qualified, certified to be able to evaluate all these different systems, give you good information, and we're third party. We're objective. We're not going to try to sell you on any handyman or construction services to upgrade the house. We're just going to tell you what the condition of all these things are. And we're going to do that at a price that is, a small fraction of what it would take to run this army of specialists through a house.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, the third party is huge. I mean, in any sort of large transaction, not just houses, somebody that is not financially tied to their recommendations. Yeah. Once you pay us to be there, we're just going to tell you what's up with the house. It's not like we have any sort of incentive to say something is more, is worse than it is.
Yeah.
Because we don't, there's no financial gain there. We don't partner with anybody. We have a list of contractors that we know all are reputable people, but we don't get any kickbacks from anybody. We don't offer any sort of incentive for giving them leads or anything like that. It's just to really help you. And then also on the note of us not being specialists, more generalists, I think that in some ways it's a good thing because we won't overblow something, and if we find something that is out of our realm that looks incorrect, we will refer you to a specialist at that point. But it's a lot better to get the generalist point of view before you go to that person that might see this as an immediate issue.
Yeah, and it's a tough line to walk because you don't want to miss anything, right? When you're doing a home inspection, like you want to find absolutely everything that you can. You want to explore every nook and cranny, but we really can't offer any guarantees that like everything is exactly as we stated because there's so many limitations inherent to things. We can offer infrared scans and do mold moisture analysis. We certainly want to give you everything that we possibly can. But the flip side of that is, if you make mountains out of molehills, it kind of protects us as a home inspector because, it's a lot easier to step things back and, oh, it's not as bad as the inspector said. But that's kind of disingenuous too. More than anything else, what we want to present in the reports is accurate and honest. Like this is exactly what we think is going on here.
Mm-hmm.
And if we do find something that's maybe more excessive or we think this is a significant issue, the first thing we're going to say is you need to talk to a plumber about this item because we think that this is bad, so
right.
They have guidance about how to proceed and how to explore things further with those specialists.
Yeah. So I think, that the cost relating back to the expense of an inspection, it's pretty invaluable, and you don't really know. The hardest part about it is you're not sure if the house is going to have an issue that comes up that is going to make the inspection totally worth it, or if the inspection report is going to come back completely clean and it's like, well, you didn't really find anything. Oh, that's actually a good thing for for the most part.
I
Gives you
used
the
to get
peace of
real
mind.
apprehensive about that. You just
Mhm.
do a home inspection and the house is like in great shape. I used to feel like I had failed in some way, like there's supposed to be some boogeyman in the closet that I'm going to find. And I've gotten a lot better, with experience of just being able to tell people like, hey, congratulations, you found a real nice house here.
Yeah, I think it used to be like, oh, maybe I didn't do my job well enough, but
Yeah.
now it's like almost a relief to give that short summary at the end of the inspection and just
Yeah.
say, this house is in great shape. I think you're making a great purchase decision, and we don't give specific recommendations on whether you should buy the house or not, but you can kind of infer it from a short inspection report. We also did sort of a data study a while ago about, is an inspection actually worth it, where we reviewed 50 to 100 reports, I can't remember the exact number, and went through every single defect and how much it would roughly cost to repair, and if those repair costs exceeded the actual average home inspection cost, etc. And we did find that more than like 80% of houses were the amount of items found that could have been negotiated for in the sale exceeded the home inspection costs by a lot. So
Yeah.
it's definitely one of those things where you can find one item and it makes the inspection so much, it makes it well worth your money and time.
Yeah. And we're not going into these houses like, looking for deal breakers, even our relationships with like real estate agents, like we try to keep them at arm's length. Like we want to be objective. Our company tagline is built on trust, that you as our client would trust us to be honest and give you information. There've been times where you get a real estate agent who, kind of takes you aside and says like, hey, I really need this deal to go through. Like, well, maybe you should pick a better house next time then.
Yeah, it's tough. You walk a fine line, and you don't want to overblow things, and you don't want to undervalue items that you find. And I would say most agents understand that this is just kind of a part of it, where they just stay out of it and may use the report as their negotiation tool where they can. And I think it's not really an issue that we see that much. So, is a home inspection expensive? Our average home inspection fee is between $400 and $600 for houses the size of the houses in Colorado, and then there's add-on if you want to do radon sewer, some more fees on top of that. Is it expensive for? Is the number big for certain people? Yes, I will say it's not the smallest, but you're also making an extremely large purchase decision. So in the grand scheme of things versus other fees within the transaction, I would say it's the most beneficial and the middle of the road expense.
I would say that to answer the question, why are home inspections so expensive? I would say they're not. They're very reasonable.
Yeah, I agree. Not to knock any other of the fees, but I would say you use your inspection report quite a bit more than you would ever use your title insurance. And maybe that we'll end with that.
Good.